Hi, this presentation would talk about the approaches in teaching and so as the approaches in teaching science. First, we should understand that approaches, strategies, methods, and techniques in teaching are geared towards student engagement. Student engagement would not necessarily mean physical engagement, but in terms of teaching and learning, we say that a student is engaged whenever the student or the learner invests cognitive effort and interest in learning the material. And that's a target or goal for every teaching and learning episode, that we as teachers are able to provide a learning environment for our students where they would be motivated to invest cognitive effort and interest in learning the field of science. Now, it's important that we also demarcate or be clear of the difference between a teaching strategy or a teaching approach, strategy, method, and technique. When we say teaching approach, this would refer to the set of principles or ideas about the nature of learning. It would refer to your idea as a teacher of how learning should work or how teaching should work. Now, your teaching approach can be translated into a series of long-term plan of action, and we call it teaching strategy. The development of a complete course module can be considered a strategy because it consists of a series of action that culminates into observing a desired learning outcome for students. The development of a core syllabus, for example, is also embodiment of a teaching strategy. The development of a subject unit plan can also be considered an embodiment of teaching strategy. When we say teaching method, this refers to the logical arrangement of steps of a systematic way of teaching. To exemplify, the steps that you put in your lesson plan actually manifests your teaching method. The steps you put in the motivation part, the steps that you put in the teaching proper part, manifests your teaching method. Teaching technique, on the other hand, would refer to a particular style of how you carry out your method, meaning two teachers can have the same method, but both of them can carry it out differently through their style, and that is what we call the teaching technique. Teacher 1 can have the same activity with teacher 2 in accordance to a standard lesson plan, but the way they will carry out this activity, the style they will carry out this activity, would refer to their teaching technique. Now, all of this, from the approach to the technique, is encapsulated on what we call paradigm. Paradigm is like your doctrine in terms of teaching and learning. The way you think about the approaches and the way you think about your strategy, your method, and your style would always be rooted on your set of belief system about teaching and learning. This implies that if you really want to empower your students in terms of learning, you would not just settle or you would not just change and design activities that would empower your students, but your belief about your students and your belief about yourself as a teacher should be consistent on empowering the students. There are several approaches in teaching and learning, and some of them demonstrate a student-centered learning paradigm. Some of them do not. For example, we have the direct expositive instruction approach. This approach makes use of the direct instruction or lecture method and the demonstration method. The demonstration method in terms of teaching science can be exemplified whenever a science teacher demonstrates how a particular scientific equipment is being used. However, we also have what we call the indirect guided or exploratory inquiry approach. If you would notice, again, demonstration is classified on this approach. While demonstration can be classified as a direct approach, it can also be classified as an indirect or inquiry approach if there are work-along activities along with the demonstration. The work along activities are those activities that would allow learners or students to be a doer of a learning outcome while they are observing a particular demonstration. Aside from the demonstration, we also have the Socratic method or the dialogical learning that takes place in learning science, meaning a deepening discussion of the different scientific principles, not just a discussion or a statement or a declaration of facts, but rather a discussion, a deepened discussion of analysis and evaluation of scientific arguments is an example of a Socratic method. We also have the problem-solving method, wherein we pose problems for students to do research and propose solution on the context that we provided them. We also have the project method, which is like a culmination of different topics learned by the student, and it's also effective in terms of giving a real-life context to the student where they would apply the scientific principles that they have learned. Cooperative learning is in terms of collaboration. The experiments we do, for most of the time, we ask learners to do it as a group. In there, they practice scientific skills collaboratively. The collaborative practice of inquiry and experimentation can be considered a cooperative learning method. Peer tutoring and partner learning differs in terms of the persons involved doing the activity. When we say it's peer tutoring, for most of the time, there's one who has more, or we perceive someone as having the intellectual advantage over the other one. So the tutor has an intellectual advantage over the tutee, so we pair them up for peer tutoring. But for partner learning, it does not necessarily goes that way. There's no perception that one is better and the other one is not, so you pair them. No, we can have the assumption that both of them are learners and both of them are learning at the same time, and we pair them as partner so that they would do collaboration as well through dyad activities. Other approaches would involve a blended learning approach or a combination of different modes of delivery. We have the reflective teaching approach, which makes learners reflect on the progress of how they are learning. We have the metacognitive approach, which reflects or makes learners reflect on the way they are thinking about things. We have the constructivist approach, which allows learner to generate their own information and synthesis. This is also embedded in the experimentation of science, wherein at the end of the experiment, we allow students to synthesize the findings they have in the experiment. We have the integrated approach, wherein we relate aspects of science in other disciplines like social science, business, finance, arts. We also have the problem-based learning approach, where we pose a real-life problem and we ask our student to make research, to do scientific research, and then use the findings of this research to propose a solution to the problem that we posted. Again, this problem is a real-life problem. So the question now is, which approach is ideal for science? If we will look into the curriculum conceptual framework of science education in the Philippines, we can see combination of different approaches, from interdisciplinary approach, or the one that I mentioned as integrated approach, up to the inquiry-based approach. The idea is that we, as teachers, should provide the right learning environment for students to learn science in such a way that they would demonstrate learning outcomes manifesting scientific skills, scientific knowledge, and scientific attitude. All of these are geared towards what we call the scientific and technological literacy. To know more about the approaches in science, please go over with the reading materials on scientific approaches and the science education curriculum in the Philippines. I hope this presentation have helped you on conceptualizing and gaining initial knowledge about teaching approaches in science. Thank you and good day.